Hello, everyone. Welcome to Camino Wisdom Stories. Adam, please introduce our
Yeah.
theme.
Okay. So it's being a pilgrim for life in March 2026. And I find this, I think this is a fascinating theme because I think probably we all interpret, you know, being a pilgrim. What does it mean being a pilgrim? And then being a pilgrim for life. What does that mean? So I think maybe could be an interesting discussion because we may come at it from lots of different angles. So I've put a slide deck together just to give you my two pennies worth on the subject. And so hopefully you can all see that first screen. And so the Oxford, of course, I've got to go to the Oxford English Dictionary definition definition of a pilgrim. And I think we probably all know that there's two definitions of a pilgrim. There was one that was sort of before Christianity, I think, where simply, and this says here number one, late Old English, a person on a journey, a person who travels from place to place, a traveler, a wanderer, an itinerant. I like to think of it as just it's a traveler just through a foreign land. And I think that was the original definition of a pilgrim. Somebody just passing through a foreign land. And then with the height of pilgrimage and Christendom and everything else in the 12th century and the 13th century, there's this definition, number two, a person who makes a journey to a sacred place as an act of religious devotion. And I see that in many ways is Camino Santiago, the origins of the Camino Santiago. And then at the same time, there's this other third definition, which is somebody who really devotes their life to a sort of a pilgrimage. Person traveling through life who undertakes a course of spiritual development leading towards heaven. So I'm interpreting that as maybe it's like the monks that live on an island or something, and they've really put my life as a pilgrimage, and I'm here temporarily on earth, in sort of, I suppose, in Christianity's sake, and home is heaven. I came from heaven, I return to heaven, I imagine. So that's just as a stakeholder, just the three definitions. But then I also like to think that, whether we're aware of it or not, aren't we all pilgrims? Every single one of us on this planet, we're all pilgrims because we're all traveling through this foreign land. We're all temporarily here, going through this land we call life. And I think maybe, when we go on pilgrimage, we go on Camino, it's just opening our awareness to a deeper journey, deeper life journey, which, in many ways is why we're having this conversation today. It's like, okay, we're going deeper. What is this journey we call life? And how do we go through this journey through life? And then, there's the pilgrim. So, my interpretation of the pilgrim is always been a person that leaves home with the intention of going on pilgrimage, knowing they're not going to come back as the same person as the one who set out. So gone away, like, I want this experience to transform me. Don't know how it's going to happen. I'm going to venture in the unknown. I don't know what's going to happen, but I know I'm going to come back different. And in that place, it's like, on that journey, it's really being open to what is. I'm open to everything sort of being challenged. So my identity, my faith, my beliefs are all challenged. And in the process, we discover new sides of ourselves, the personal narrative that we've stories that we've told ourselves about ourselves, we sort of discover that's not true. And we start rewriting that personal narrative, and in that place we start letting go of a lot of stuff that really no longer serves us, and a new us is coming through. And so the outcome of pilgrimage, I think, is that transformation that takes place inside. And I think for me, it's like a pilgrim of life is that recognition that life is a growth journey. And we have two, we can spend our life sort of putting all our energy outward success, money, possessions, material things, and all of that. That's a journey in itself. But this pilgrimage of life journey is more recognition of, I have an inner journey. I'm meant to grow. And my inner pilgrimage is taking me, it's really a journey of maturity. It's taking me from being the child to being the elder in my mature years, when I'm much older. And that is for me, that's what pilgrimage of life is about. Um, and at the same time, pilgrimage is a sacred journey in which God, the mystery, and the transcendent is encountered. I think we've all experienced this in the Camino. and such like. But it's also the recognition that, I think too, that we're sacred. It's okay, there's God is sacred and the transcendent, but it's also, okay, my life is sacred. I'm on a sacred journey. I'm sacred too. And that is what allows us to sort of really have that, feel that I'm a pilgrim going through my entire life journey, because my life's journey is sacred. And final slide. So maybe here are some, I don't know, I'm just putting out here some characteristics of being a pilgrim for life. That recognition that life is a sacred journey. It's one of continuous transformation and personal growth. Where present, we see that the sacred is seen within the ordinary and the mundane. So there's no two distinctions. It's in actually just doing the washing up is sacred. Just the mundane stuff, it's sacred in its own way. And Pilgrim of Life, we have that seeker mindset. It's that, and that speaks, I think, to the growth journey. I want to know more. Whatever my age, I'm curious to discover. I want to dig deeper. I want answers. I'm going to continue moving. And I think that's the other thing too with pilgrimage. I mean, I remember this expression reading years ago. A book said, "Life is movement, and change. Life is change, and we have to move and we have to change. If not, we fall away by the wayside." And I think that speaks to this life as, pilgrimage for life. We're continually moving, we're continuously seeking it, continuously curious. And then here we're willing to embrace that mystery, the ambiguity of the unknown. We live in the present with what is, and such like. And there's that sense of purpose. There is a Santiago in our life, and that may change over time at our different ages. But there is an intention. There's a purpose. There's an act of service. There's a greater good that we're helping with. And pilgrimage, hardships deliver the seeds of renewal and reward. We see that that growth comes through hardship, and that's like that Carl Jung expression. The difference between a good life and a bad life is how well you walk through the fire. And I think that speaks to the pilgrimage journey. And we know too that finally, that where we are today is based on the journey we've taken, and the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's formed us. It's created us to who we are today. And we're that amazing person that we are today because of all of that. And so that's my interpretation of what it means to be sort of a pilgrim of life. I don't know if it resonates. Maybe some of it does. But I'd be curious to ask, what does being a pilgrim of life mean for you? Is it a new question, or is it a question that's been you currently live, or just exploring?
Thanks, Adam. Again, really thought-provoking. Thanks for putting that all together. So yeah, as Adam has said, we want to open it up to all of you now and hear from you. What does it mean to you when you think about being a pilgrim of life or a pilgrim for life?
When I saw the topic, one of the things that's been coming to me recently, and because I'm using this same feeling inside me, when I first heard about the Camino, and it was like 10 years before I even walked, the feeling inside me was like, ooh, this is really interesting. I'd like to do this someday. And that feeling never went away. And so what I learned over the course of 10 years and finally getting to walk and feeling like this was something that was crucial for my life development, was that when I get that feeling about something and it doesn't go away, that's my signal from somewhere to pay attention. This is perhaps what I signed on for, what my soul said it wanted to accomplish or work on in this life, and I just need to go for it. And recently, I've been having that same feeling with regard to the state of the world, and like, there's something I need to do. And that feeling is just as strong in me as the Camino, or it's getting there. I mean, it took 10 years of building for the Camino, so it's starting, but it feels the same. So I guess in answer to, for me, being a pilgrim for life, one of the things is that I've learned to appreciate that internal voice that is going to nag me, or nag is really too harsh a word, but is going to pursue me until I pay attention to what it is I signed up to do. And so I'm paying attention now. I don't think I'll take 10 years to figure it out.
Deborah, thank you. You've given us a great navigational tool there of what it feels like in the body to hear that call or something in the energy of it all. And if the first call to pilgrimage felt one way, now that you're hearing that again or feeling that again, ooh, let me pay attention to that. Thank you so much. And buen camino on that journey. The world needs that.
Yeah, I love that, Deborah, because it's a great reminder of, like the call to pilgrims, the call to the Camino, how it comes in the same, it's coming in the same way. That never crossed my mind, that actually listen to that deeper inner voice, and that is the pilgrimage call. So thank you so much, because yeah, it's the starting point.
If I may, I'm going to read a poem from someone named Kathy Hollister. So she is a Camino pilgrim who ended up writing poetry and publishing it in a book called Seasoned Women. And it explores like women at different ages and stages of life. Some of the poems are inspired by the Camino, but something in Adam's introduction reminded me of a poem in her book, which I did review this for La Concha a few years ago. But when Adam was talking about the sacred even being found in the mundane, she has a poem that is titled, I Always Wash the Dishes Alone. So she says, noise from the TV in the next room tries to reach me, but it shies away from the task at hand. It doesn't peek around the corner lest it be asked to dry, to stack, to scrape. My secret hand spa is mine alone. Warm water softens stiff joints made stiffer by the unpaid bill on the counter, a worry for another day. The soft swish of the sponge whisks away the clotted remains of snubbed vegetables and gobbled mac and cheese. The satisfying squeak of thumb on degreased china fills my fairy bubble, my armor of chores, where evenly spaced plates, the good little children line up clean, stately, and cater to my every wish to behave, stand still, and wait. I'll never tell how much I enjoy this. So I think that just shows, like, when I read that, I was like, that shows how even washing dishes can be a prayer. And like, I find comfort in very mundane tasks like that too. And I think it helps when we might be struggling with something or being distracted by a lot of things in life. It helps recenter and ground us and help us be rooted again, and which I think is a lesson we learn on Camino also. So there's that.
So beautifully said, Amy. Thank you so much for sharing that poem with us. When I think about what it means to me to be a pilgrim for life, definitely one of the qualities is presence. And I think in day-to-day life, it's hard to, for me at least, and I've heard this from others as well, it's hard to maintain that presence. But the way that she talks about that, oh my gosh, I'm present with her to that task at hand. And I just think that's so beautiful. Thank you.
Deborah, your share really kind of got the wheels turning for me because, and some of you know this because we've talked a little bit about it, that this year I have termed my year of listening. And that's kind of been my focus for 2026. And I love the idea of tying that in with being a pilgrim for life, that really to be a pilgrim is to listen. It is to listen to those calls. It is to tend to those calls, and it is to be aware and paying attention to the messages that you're receiving all the time. And it really, I just kind of love the sort of full circle-ness of that tying into this being my year of listening, and this also maybe being my year of being a better pilgrim as a result.
I can't imagine you a better pilgrim. I'm not going to qualify that in any way. I think you're a beautiful pilgrim of life, Ronnie. I'm glad to share the path with you. And I think that one of the reasons that this topic appeals to people, or that Adam and I wanted to do this, is because it can be challenging to stay awake to being a pilgrim of life and not fall into the mundane. And your year of listening sounds so sweet and sacred, and it sounds like a pilgrim path. Thank you for sharing.
Thanks, Bonnie.
As I mentioned, I did not want to miss today for obvious reasons. I think it was very much said by Deborah. What causes you to go on pilgrimage or your first Camino, it does not start on the day that you get on the plane. It starts months, years beforehand, that your life is calling for something, a new awakening. And which happened for me, but what I thought was originally my calling turned out to be much more transformational. And the biggest, and I use the word problem, is that whether I've been on one Camino or three, as I've been so far, the transformation of the word pilgrim has happened in my life. And it's very hard to, I saw, maintain the virtues of your pilgrim mission in the world that we live in. And I'm constantly trying to resolve, how do I go deeper in my pilgrimage without offending my world that's around me? Because the people that are around you typically don't understand, or they don't have that same desire. And it's whether you're in a church, synagogue, mosque, whatever it is, that's, I call, more societal accepted. But if you go on pilgrimage, people think it's a little out there. Or even when I say Buen Camino to my friends, they laugh at me, because I'm trying to say that, hey guys, there is more to life than just watching a sporting event or work or whatever it may be, that there is a deeper meaning to life. And this is I'm getting the part of retirement, and I go, people go, what are you going to do? And I'm not telling them all the things that I want to achieve, which is to be a more devoted pilgrim, because they're going to go, oh my God, you've left the farm. And so that's why today was like, okay, how do I see today's presentation and adapt the foundations of a pilgrim into be more fulfilling in my everyday, quote, California life. And my family sees the benefit of me becoming a pilgrim, but I want to have that even more internal happiness or quest be more than just when I'm alone. It's a difficult thing to achieve. The realization we talk about here, there's that one scene in the movie, The Way, My Way, when he sits and he calls his wife, he goes, honey, I'm a pilgrim. And that's really, when I hear that, I'm going, that's who I want to be. I'm looking for a deeper meaning. And we have one life, and this is the life I want to achieve. Whether it offends others or people don't get it, it's my desire. And you just can't be on Camino 24/7. Then I've crossed over to a little bit of crazy. But I definitely want to do more Caminos as long as my body holds up. And so, but I think it's not just being on Camino, it's more about being a pilgrim in your everyday life. That's my desire. So that's what I wanted to add for today.
You did such a beautiful job there, Dan, of putting into words what I think so many of us feel. And I wrote a couple of your phrases down. Maintain the values of being a pilgrim in everyday life. Loved that one. The desire to be a more devoted pilgrim
Mm.
and looking for a deeper meaning. When I was prepping for today, or when I was thinking about today, I'm going to read two quotes I came up with. I'm looking at Phil Cousineau's book, The Art of Pilgrimage, and he says, what makes a pilgrimage sacred is the longing behind the journey. I think that's, Deborah's talking about that inner sense. And Dan, I definitely hear that in you, that longing to find a deeper meaning or be a more devoted pilgrim. Definitely, I hear that. The other thing that he said that really resonated with me right now, because I've been feeling a little bit lost. And that's why this topic for me was so appropriate for today as well. He says, pilgrim has its roots in Latin per agrum, through the field. This ancient image suggests a curious soul who walks beyond known boundaries, which I think is like our everyday life, the sameness of everyday life. We want to go beyond that. We're looking for something more. Crosses fields, touching the earth with a destination in mind and a purpose in heart. I think it's that purpose in heart that's such a key, at least for me right now. I feel like that's something that's missing. I want more of aliveness around that purpose. I want to feel that longing that Deborah's talking about. So I kind of went off on my own tangent there, but Dan, thank you for everything that you shared and the beautiful words that you used as you expressed that.
Yeah, Dan, and I just thank you. Thank you for sharing that because it's a massive, what you're experiencing with when you share is a massive reminder to me how we can easily forget that when we go off on Camino, we are taking a hero's journey. And because the structure underlying pilgrimage is that of a hero's journey. And when we come back home, and this is what Joseph Campbell has said, is that when we come back home, the hero may not be welcomed. The returned individual, the transformed individual may find it very hard to return to the world they left. And in many ways, that's the beginning potentially of a new hero's journey. Okay, so what am I going to do now? Because I want to, I have to integrate, and this is my world, but they don't want me and stuff. So that's a whole new thing that comes up. So it's like a new Camino begins because it's like, how do I fit in? And this is what Campbell talks about, the tension of opposites. How do I balance? I want to be here, but I also have to be here. And this is the yin and the yang. But as an extreme, often it's like, well, this isn't my tribe anymore, for the hero. So I've come back, I've transformed. This isn't my tribe. I have to let it go. And off I go on a new journey to go off and find my tribe as an extreme. But so I think what you've shared reminded me is it's totally natural to feel this way. And that is the transformational work that's happened in that sense. And it's a great reminder. So thank you for your share. And it's not easy too. So.
I may be seconding some things that have already been said. I also sort of got the call to go on the Camino about 10 years before I actually went. But at the time, I remember I just retired and I was really enjoying it not working. And I was really getting into being a homebody and doing all the stuff that I never had time to do. To the extent that I remember this one morning, I woke up and I looked out the window and I had this voice in my head so clear that said, "You have to get out of here." And it really rocked me because I was so comfortable, but I couldn't ignore that. And I knew that that's where I needed to circle back around to. I have in my beginning journal a quote from Thoreau, Adam, here for you. And he says, "We do not commonly live our life out and full. We live but a fraction of our life. Why do we not let on the flood, raise the gates, and set all our wheels in motion?" And and I guess that was kind of when I went, how I came to feel about it. And I guess to piggyback on what Dan said, when I came back, and I just have to say it was a saving grace. So I came back in October, and I don't know how I had heard about Heroes Wisdom, but it was there, and I'd signed up for it. And the very first session when I came back was about returning from the Camino. And I had only been back maybe about 2.5 weeks. And I thought I was going crazy because my mindset was so completely different than everything around me, that I had transformed, and yet everything around me had not. So it was a it was a grace and a blessing to hear that, oh, actually, this is what's normal for me. What I'm feeling, this is my new normal. And I've this year fallen into another group of sort of spiritually minded people, and there have been a few of them that have heard that I've done the Camino and are interested in that and coming to me as, I wouldn't even use the word guide, but just kind of the question of, I think I might want to do this. Am I crazy? And it's it's I'm really valuing my place in being able to be encouraging about that. So we'll see what 2026 brings, but it's kind of landed in my lap, and I'm taking it on. So
Thank you, Karen. I think in your share, one of the things that stands out to me is the importance of finding these communities where we can continue to be pilgrims in our everyday life. And one of the values, I think, of being a pilgrim is to serve and to help others who are on the path. And I love that you named that you have the opportunity, and I can just see you lighting up that you get to share with people and maybe help them on their journey. Thank you for bringing that up. And then your quote that you shared with us, it's so interesting. I just saw that quote this week as well. And to me, the quality in there that reminds me of the Camino is aliveness. Just being like so alive and present and living full out and feeling like I'm taking everything in. Again, that's easier to do on Camino when there's newness and novelty and other people to share the journey with. Harder, I have found in everyday life when things look the same. But again, you bring that question forward for me. How do we do this in our everyday lives? How do we keep that aliveness present and live full out like we did on the Camino? Anyway, thank you for everything that you shared.
I'm really enjoying being in this group for the first time, and I hear a lot of wisdom and things are resonating. Just a little bit of background that might help. When I walked the Camino Francis, I was at a huge crossroads in my life in my young 50s, and ended up through the Camino making the change that I really needed. Left the career that I had in schools as a teacher and school administrator, and I'm going for it as an artist in my young 50s. I'm not old enough or wealthy enough to retire, but I'm actually creating a path. I'm doing something now that I want to be doing 30 years from now. And it's been an incredible journey, so fulfilling. So that's just a little background, but there's something that I found is that when I was on the Camino, I was so moved. And I thought, this is not something I'm just going to do once. Has got to be a practice. So I actually do feel that going back is a way to tap into that. So there's that. But the reason I really wanted to talk is, I think, Adam, you said that when you come back, you're not always accepted. People aren't ready for you to be who you are. And I got a kernel of wisdom from a woman at the Pilgrim office in Santiago that I would like to share, because it really was, it was a kernel. And I think I'd gotten my credential, but then I went back because I was going to walk in reverse to Porto because I was flying out of Porto. And so I went back with some questions, but I was just lingering, like I needed, and I think she saw that I was emotional and like in that moment of seeking something. And she said, you know, when you go home, I have something for you. It will help you to learn how to say no very politely. And what I mean by that is people will say all kinds of things like, you know, you really should be doing this, or I love that, and here's what you could do with that, or whatever those things are that people say. And if you can find it in yourself to say, thank you, that's interesting, but I have a different vision for myself. And I thought, man, if I can do that, that'll solve all kinds of challenge that have plagued me for years and years. So I thought that was a real kernel.
You're absolutely right. That's a golden kernel that you brought home, and thank you for sharing that with all of us. It's a practical, easy tool, you know, to have the exact words to be able to say, and I would also add to that the permission to do
Hell
it.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
love that.
And the clarity in your heart of what it is that you want to do. Because I think in reality, the world we come back to also needs some changes. Just because there's pressure, it doesn't mean that that's what everyone wants or that's what's best for people. Like there is light that we can bring back.
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
And that is the essence of the return journey, to bring that light out into the world. But I love that statement, because it's the real Camino begins in Santiago, and that's what we're bringing home. So thanks, Lizzie. Yeah.
And again, I'll repeat what it was that she said is the kind of example of how to say no politely. When somebody gives you a suggestion, say, thank you, but I have a different vision.
Where I am in my life right now, I mentioned this earlier, just feeling a little bit lost. I really spent the last year or 10 letting go and simplifying and letting go of what life told me I should do and what society said is the right thing and this is success. Just letting it all go. And then I was telling Adam, like, I felt kind of like lost in space, no gravity, floating around. I can do anything. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the thing that's missing, I want to go back to what you said, is having a different vision, like knowing what that vision is, or that clarity, that meaning, that purpose. To me, that's, I think, maybe one of the biggest qualities right now of being a pilgrim of life that's present for me is, I mean, for a while, simplifying was my purpose and vision. And then I got there, and now it's like, okay, what is that next thing? So anyway, I love your share. Thank you. And I'm so glad that you joined us. I hope you return.
So I've got something to throw into the mix, a thought that's come to mind around being a pilgrim for life. So when we go off on Camino, pretty much our life gets inverted, doesn't it? So what, at home is safety and security when we're at home. But when we go on Camino, it's a different home every night. and what's safe and secure is the path. So change is ever present. So as pilgrims of life, how do we respond to change? How do we stay true to, actually, this is change. I'm going to accept change. I'm going to move forward with change, because that can be something that really holds us back, even once we've come back from Camino. I'm not going to do this change. But as a pilgrim of life, I just wonder whether actually we have to embrace the change, embrace the different albergue every night, the different people we're going to meet, different food, different everything. And so just a deeper thought that came up whilst we were talking. So I'm just throwing it out there. If anybody wants to comment on that at some point.
Yeah, I love that. Please respond if you have any thoughts about that. The word that comes to me, Adam, is adaptability, is that quality that that muscle that we practice, that we strengthen on the Camino, of adaptability and going and meeting the moment.
So at first I had nothing to say, but something did come to me. Thank you for all your inspiration, everyone. Well, one of the things before I've walked 3 times now, and before my first Camino, one of my big fears in telling anyone I was going to walk was that they would all think it was so dangerous and horrible and would try to talk me out of it. And what happened was I started telling people, and everybody thought it was great. I was kind of surprised that they were so open to it. But what has eventually come to be, with people, I can't shut up about the Camino. Anyone I meet knows about it. I mean, all my art is Camino stuff. Everything I do, it's got a Camino flavor to it, and I think that may be the life pilgrimage, for me. That it's an overlaying coat, the frosting on my life that it just. I'm always wearing something, some kind of jewelry, or, it's always a part of my life. But the other day I met up with a friend for lunch, a Camino friend, local person. And she just came back from a big trip. And she said to me, I was surprised you're here. Then you didn't just go off on a Camino, because people expect me to just disappear and be gone on a Camino. And then a few days later, my 91-year-old cousin said, so when are you going on the Camino this year? And I said, well, I don't have one right now. And it's just an interesting thing that in some ways the Camino of my life has become such the portrait that they see of me, that they just have this expectation that I will always be there at some point, so.
That is interesting. That Harriet the Pilgrim, to all of her friends and family, goes on Camino every single year. The portrait of you as a pilgrim to others is that somebody goes on pilgrim, somebody that goes to Spain or Portugal or Europe every year. Which brings to mind to me, like, if people started recognizing us as pilgrims of life, what would that look like? Not just somebody who goes back and does the pilgrimage year after year, but what does it look like when we're doing it daily? Thanks for your share, Harriet. A question that I wanted to ask is, if the Camino taught us how to be a pilgrim, what does it look like? Can we take a moment and share with each other the things that we do? What qualities, or Dan brought up virtues of the pilgrim. What are we trying to keep alive as pilgrims of life? I would love to put things in the chat if you want to, or raise your hand, or just unmute yourself.
It's always interesting that I've been able to be with the Hoosiers on the Camino chapter in Indianapolis, of which Harriet is a proud member of. And we just have regular gatherings that we get to associate with people who want to talk about the Camino. And we're always excited when someone new shows up, because we get to tell our story again to the group. And we know we have an active, interested person in the new member. And that's just been a great thing, really. But, locating, and I remember explicitly when I came back from the Camino. My minister asked me to put on a program or something. I told her no, I couldn't do that. It was just too personal. But after a while, things became a little clearer for me, and I haven't been able to stop sharing since then. It just took a while. Just took a while. But it's been a great journey that I'm on, and I frequently walk. I look for any excuse to walk to the CVS, or sometimes I'm in California and I'll walk down to the post office. Just any excuse to get out and walk. And I give a tip of the hat to Karen Kaiser, because I can't pass up a piece of trash sitting, in the gutter. I have to, every time I go out, I have to at least pick up one piece of debris. It's just been a life-changing experience for me. And I try to be conscious of downsizing the carbon footprint in my life. So,
Thank you, David. I like that, to walk as our form of transportation. I think keeping that alive, when I can do that, again, I tap into that sense of aliveness or purpose or something of a pilgrim. Walking from the coffee shop to the post office to wherever I'm going, there's something that brings me closer to life that feels meaningful. And I also put into the chat, contributing by keeping the land clean, making a difference, bringing meaning to being a pilgrim of life. Thanks,
well,
David.
to me, it's I ran into this little story about walking, and they traced movement, and we've been moving since the earliest stages of our existence. And if you're not moving, chances are you're dead. So we're just we're born moving. So we just keep it going.
Yes. Ronnie just wrote in the chat that one of the reasons that she and her husband love to travel so much is because they walk everywhere when they're traveling, and it automatically becomes a central part of the daily experience. I agree, there is something to that. Motion is lotion, absolutely, Sarah. Taking care of the body, beautiful.
I was struck by being able to say no when somebody asks or something. And it seems to me that a way of being present, well, a way of being in a Camino lifestyle, if you will. And for me, that's really my way at this point, is being able to meet new experiences with the possibility of saying no and the possibility of saying yes. Sometimes, I mean, both things. Somebody, not me, could make a suggestion that, like, okay, that is a good idea, and I want to try to do that. And sometimes it's often harder for us to say no to things. So I really appreciate what was said. But I like meeting new experiences. I like trying new things. I was planning to walk the Camino last year, and an opportunity came up to live overseas, and so in South Africa for the year, and I did that instead. It doesn't mean that walking the Camino is off my list, but it's one of those things that I first knew about the Camino about 10 years ago, and now it'll take 10 or 11 years before I actually walk the Camino. But I did a lot now. I was in South Africa last year. I said yes to that. And where I was living in a small town, and I didn't have a car. So if I wanted to do anything that wasn't in my house or in the compound where I lived, I had to walk. So I walked to the grocery store, and I walked to the coffee shop, and I walked to see friends, and I walked to it was just 1 mile, it wasn't far at all, to the seacoast, to just enjoy the seacoast and the water just pounding on the rocks there and the beauty of all of that. So just sometimes saying no to things is the right choice, and saying yes to things can be the right choice. It depends. And having the courage to discern that and be present to things we don't expect in our lives. I what I hear from everybody who walks is you don't know what the day is going to bring. And the truth is, in our daily lives, even with all our routines, we don't always know what the day is going to bring. And I want to give a little example of something I said yes to. Just within 15 minutes before this Zoom started, um, the pastor at the church I go to called me and said, tomorrow the reading is going to be the raising of Lazarus, and she wants to have people act it out. And so she said, would I be willing to participate in acting out the raising of Lazarus? And I said, well, okay. And then she said, so would you be Jesus? And I really, I really just think it's hilarious. I mean, I just laughed and laughed and laughed on the phone. It's like, oh yeah, I'm so holy. That's just really my role. So anyway, I get to say Lazarus come out, and some other things as well. So I'm saying yes to that. And it's an opportunity to ask myself, how something about my own spirituality, I think, like really, my sense is, oh, I am so much less than that. But on the other hand, well, maybe I can just act that out anyway for the purpose of what the pastor wants. So,
Oh, wow, Marian. Oh my gosh. Thank you for all of that. I wrote a couple things in the chat. Humor you
yeah.
brought to us, courage,
Mm-hmm.
clarity, being able to be in the moment and decide, is this a yes for me? Is this a no for me? Being okay with either one. My yes moment happened a couple of years ago when my boyfriend at the time, he always has these crazy ideas. Let's do da, 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 da. And he's like, I want to quit my job and buy a van and live in a van. And I'm like, oh my God, here we go again. Like a lot of me will just let these ideas go because I know that they're big for a while and then they kind of get small. He came to me a couple of days later. He's like, so I found this van. I think we should go look at it. And I could feel my habituated response of, no, that's impractical. No, blah, blah, blah. And I paused for a second. There was some kind of a wisdom in there, I think, that just said, yeah, saying yes to the possibility.
Mm-hmm.
And long story short, we bought the van. We came home with it. Yeah, and now it's my residence when I'm not pet sitting, when I'm not traveling. It was such a blessing to be open to something unexpected. So thank you for your share. It reminds me of how, yeah, that is a quality, I think, of a pilgrim, and just being open to saying yes.
Mm-hmm.
Marian, I think that you could say yes. Say yes. You were asked by someone that knows you, do you
Mm-hmm.
want to be Jesus?
Oh,
Say yes. Say yes. Like, yeah, I feel like so much of this being a pilgrimage and you like, what does pilgrimage look like in real life? I think so much of it is recognizing the divinity in ourselves and divinity in each other and divinity and like washing the dishes, doing all those things. And in my personal journey, I don't know if it's going to involve the Camino or not. It involves, but I'm drawing on a lot of ideas from Catholicism, Christianity, even though I don't subscribe to either of those, but they have a lot of things that are good with the ritual and everything. And I think it's a good idea to accept if you've been offered this divinity. So part of my journey is recognizing, okay, who are my saints? If it's not Jesus, if it's not God, who are my saints? And all I could think of is my girlfriends that have inspired me, inspired me, inspired me. And I've just been telling them on a personal basis, like my pilgrimages, saying, hey, you are a saint to me in my life. You are inspiring me, and you don't have to be dead. You don't have to perform miracles except the great miracle of helping me stay alive and focused on what I'm doing. Like, I don't know. I think you should say yes if you decide that is how your path goes. Oh, and if I could chime in one more thought on David, you said someone asked you to talk about your Camino and it's too personal. And I absolutely am right with you there. Like, how can you talk about this thing? However, I've been chatting with Ann Sieben, the pilgrim, and she says pilgrimage is personal, but it can't be private. And that has totally switched my whole thinking about this, because if you're going to be a pilgrim, if you, Harriet, are going to be the archetype of all your friends being the pilgrim, I mean, I don't know. Embrace that. Embrace that.
I just want to make a quick point, and Marianne, thank you for your story. A super important counterpoint that you helped me remember its importance is probably equally important is to learn to say hell yes. Not just yes. And I'm in this art community called Art to Life, where the main message is do more of what brings you to life. That's where the power in your art is. That's what people want in art. So do what brings you to life. But the thing about saying hell yes is like, for me, it's color. So when I see colors that I can feel and the harmony just feels right, hell yes, I know it. And it's nice to have the permission to say that when in other parts of my life I have held back, I've doubted myself. But like, if I know something, then say hell yes. And Catherine, all that you were saying was super important, and you are back on.
Sorry about that, y'all. I guess sorry, I missed what you said, Lisi, but I just feel that part of my responsibility in being a pilgrim in my everyday life is to share my journey with my friends. And it's not going to happen all at once or right away, but I do feel that this is part of my journey, is collecting stories and listening and sharing and recognizing everyone else on their own journey. Like, I see everybody on your journey, this regardless of whether you're home or away. It's really exciting. So that's all I had.
That's all I have. Like, so much gold in everything that you just shared, Catherine. Lisi, the hell yes. What did you say? Following, do more of what brings you to life. Yeah, I think that definitely, that's something, that's a direction that we can all lean into when we're looking for ways to be a pilgrim in life. Not being complacent, doing what we love, saying hell yes. And Catherine, yes, thank you for all of your wisdom. I think one important thing that you say there is the interactive piece, collecting stories, listening to others, witnessing others, sharing our story. Beautiful, beautiful points.
I just wanted to add, I've heard a common message today, which is going to be very useful for me, is of course being present is key in pilgrimage, but also bringing some of the tools that you do on pilgrimage to your own life. And I've indirectly have started that. I moved my office within a mile of my home, and I'll occasionally walk to my office and back. And in Southern California, everybody goes by their cars everywhere. And I'll tell you, when I go to a walk from my home to my office, and I have my backpack, instead of having my briefcase on my back with my computer, the looks I get at the stop signs, people look at you like, you're walking? Who are you? And I'm like, you know what? I enjoy this moment because it's so great to have the opportunity to walk and be present in the moment, meeting people instead of being in my car, talking on a stoplight. And it's a little bit of stuff that we've heard today is that we can bring in tools of our pilgrimage or Camino into our everyday life. And I think I've heard that throughout today. I'm like, the divinity of being, which I think is an amazing comment, is that we can be more with God in our everyday life, just being who we are. And I think that's been profoundly learned today. So thank you.
Well, thanks, Dan. I think you've beautifully articulated that, bringing the Camino home, absolutely, literally, into everyday life. Yeah. And for me, it's, I understand, being British, and I walk everywhere in the UK. So, it's just been very natural just to be walking around. But I totally get it too in the US, where, yeah, you're going to be looked at as you will be the pilgrim, the stranger in the foreign land, walking to your office. You're a genuine pilgrim doing that. So, yeah.
Hi. One of the things that I love about the pilgrimage is that it's so simple. All I have to do is eat, sleep, walk, rinse and repeat, eat, sleep, walk. And sad to say, I'm not very good at doing that here. I usually have 6 or 7 strings going on, and oh yeah, I meant to go back there and do something, and then I'm going to come out here and do something, but I get stuck here, and then I don't go back there again. And it's just, uh, I I need that kind of sanity.
The sanity of the simplicity, the sanity of not having all the distraction. Is that what you're saying?
Well, trying to focus on only one point or one subject or one distraction to make it one less distraction at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah, focus on one thing, exactly what you wrote.
I have one more question, and thank you guys for adding things into the chat. Being open to strangers, said Deborah, and Ronnie, circling around the concepts of mindfulness. Yeah. I had an interesting experience a couple nights ago, leading up to it. I had been saying, I hope you guys understand, and this doesn't sound too judgmental, but I just got back from Vietnam, I don't know, a month ago. And I've been struggling with my reentry this time. And when I was talking to somebody, I just said, living in the United States is so boring to me. Is just where I am right now. Like, I try to put myself in the world to have this exchange with strangers, or to go into a restaurant and meet somebody new, or like I look for those things, but where do I find that person like I did in Vietnam, who's 21 years old from France, just gave up everything, got a visa to go to Japan and live, and I'm like, oh my God, I want to sit with you the rest of the day. Tell me everything. Like, where do I find those people here that aren't too busy doing something else, that don't look at me like I'm crazy? But here's the little teeny thing that I found, because I'm always looking for, like, where's the entry point to some of these things we're looking for. I went to get some blue cheese at the store the other day. And I decided, okay, instead of like the regular little packets, the cheaper ones, I'm going to actually go to the cheese counter and just see if there's anything on sale. And there was this cheese on sale, but it was still way more expensive than this other specialty cheese on sale. And I'm like, I'm just going to get the cheap one. And the guy comes up from behind the counter and he says, there is a point in all of this, you guys. the guy comes up behind the counter and he says, "Can I help you?" He's the cheesemonger. He's the cheese guy. And at first I'm thinking to myself, no, I'm good. But then I thought, okay, just say yes. I'm like, well, this one's like $4 more. Why would I want, is there a reason that I want to get this one? He's like, oh my gosh, let me tell you. This comes in, this is our specialty cheese. This is the most expensive cheese we carry. It's $50 a pound normally. And da 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 and all da 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 da. And it's wrapped in a grape leaf. And it's this, and he tells me all, and I'm like, I left there feeling so filled up, feeling that sense of aliveness, like I had met something unique. I had learned something new. And of all places, it came from the guy behind the cheese counter. I'm like, there is culture here in the United States. Not that there isn't, of course there is, but I'm always looking for where do you find that? So, still open to hearing from all of the rest of you. I do have one more question. Adam and I talked about this in our prep for today. Where have I, become complacent to being a pilgrim of life? And maybe what do we do about that? Just curious if anybody has any thoughts there.
I have too many possessions.
Yeah. Thanks, Catherine. Sarah's agreeing.
As much as I want to get rid of everything, I equally want to keep everything. So I fight with myself a lot.
Yeah. What else?
I think kind of tying into what you were talking about, Kathy, is a frustration that I share as well, is that I feel like a lot of the modern American mindset is highly dissociated. And I think it's one of the reasons that so many Americans are being drawn to the Camino right now, is because we know there's something more. We're yearning for something more. And we are trying to touch that. We're trying to find that magic and that experience of, I don't know, just the specialness and the connection and the the journey towards something more meaningful, because I think we all know that that's real, that that's life, that that's what's out there, and we feel very far from it when we're not pursuing it, if that makes sense.
Makes a ton of sense.
I wonder, it's like the distinction between a human doing and a human being. Where is my life?
Yeah.
Ronnie, something you said clicked in my head. That I'm dealing with it's like 15 years ago was the Camino, and now my Camino is aging. And so for me, it's like, how do I focus on the stuff that's the most important to me because I want to accomplish what I came here to accomplish in the time I have to accomplish it. Fit that in. That's all I can add.
Thank you. Several things are exploding in my mind at the same time. Becoming complacent to we have all the time in the world. I think that's one trap for sure. Thinking that we have is all kinds of time. And I think it's also here's the thing. When we talk about going on Camino, one of the things that I first saw was a huge gift we give ourselves is to set aside the time and space to actually do it. And I think, to your point, Deborah, it's knowing what that Santiago is, it's knowing what that deeper purpose is. And then I'd say setting aside the time and the space to let it be our number one. Who was talking about it earlier, letting it be the one thing, letting ourselves focus on just one thing. Even if it's not all day, but okay, for this hour, or maybe, however long we decide. And Adam, to your point about human being and human doing, I think a human doing, we were talking about this before the call, there's a roadmap. We've been given a roadmap for how to be a human doing. What's our roadmap for being a human being? And I think that's what this conversation is about. I think really that is the story of being a pilgrim of life, is being a human being towards something more meaningful, with a purpose in mind, with a longing in our heart, like some of the earlier things that we've talked about.
I think that speaks to, Rudy, your long quote there. I think, yeah, from Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, my best French accent. But yeah, I think if everybody gives that a read, I think that speaks to, what are we here for?
Can you read that out loud, Adam, so that we have that recorded?
Okay, yeah. Old bureaucrat, my comrade, it is not you who are to blame. No one ever helped you to escape. You, like a termite, built your peace by blocking up with cement every chink and cranny through which the light might pierce. You rolled yourself up into a ball in your genteel security, in routine, in the stifling conventions of provincial life, raising a modest rampart against the winds and the tides and the stars. You have chosen not to be perturbed by great problems, having trouble enough to forget your own fate as man. You are not the dweller upon an errant planet, and do not ask yourself questions to which there are no answers. Nobody grasped you by the shoulder while there was still time. Now the clay of which you were shaped has dried and hardened, and naught in you will ever awaken the sleeping musician, the poet, the astronomer, that possibly inhabited you in the beginning. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, Wind, Sand and Stars. Thank you, Rudy. I think that speaks to why are we here?
Sorry to put you through that, Adam.
No, thank you.
That is a beautiful quote.
Beautiful quote. Yeah.
I used to review books on the radio, and that was sent to me just before. That was in the appendix of a book that was sent to me just before I went on the Camino, and it just stayed with me ever since, really. But the problem is coming back, and life gets in the way, and all the things that Adam put up right at the beginning of tonight, all the ideas of what a pilgrim is. Sometimes you're aware of them, but you feel reasonably distant from them, and the idea is trying to get back to that is quite tricky. For some of us, I know, but I know the route is there, but the idea of getting back to it is the thing that some of us are just looking for at the moment.
Oh, thanks, Rudy. Yeah, it's coming back to center, isn't it? It's that one path. That's Santiago. Yeah.
You just said it. That really resonates deeply in me. I know the root is there. It's just coming back to it. How do we come back to it? How do we remember this? Let's have that be our final question. How do we keep coming back to it? Because it is easy for life to pull us in a million different directions.
Or might it be, what do we have to let go and we're not willing to let go of?
That could be. What else?
I'd like to put in a plug for the Artist's Way. Anybody familiar with that? That has been pretty critical in my coming to get to the point of deciding to go on Camino, and I'm currently leading a group that ends when my lease ends. So I feel like it asks all the questions that we need to be asking, like silencing our naysayers, what were our childhood dreams, following our inner voices, listening to signs, writing down everything that you need to get out on paper, and then going on exploratory artist dates to refill your creative cup. I think it's a great guidebook that can go easily along your search on the Camino. So I've had great experience with it.
Me too. Thanks for bringing that up. I know some others here who have done that too. And I think when we're looking for how do we get back to, she's great at bringing us back to questions and action steps. Thank you for that. Yeah.
I think we just need to keep heading out the front door. Just even if for whatever reason, I think to keep pushing ourselves to keep walking, keep moving, keep looking, keep being a part of things, keep being open.
I love all that. Thank you.
To add to that, I would say, like, just as we might do when we set out on Camino to set an intention, and then when we find ourselves, it's kind of even like the same thing as just the practice of being present. Is it doesn't mean you're going to be perfect at it all the time, but when we notice ourselves not being present, that's our cue to recenter ourselves, right? So when we notice ourselves not living the pilgrim life, we like remember what our intention was that we set and return to that. And I think kind of a way of doing that, like Ronnie said, she picked her word or intention for the year. And I have done the same thing this year. My two words are wisdom and humor. I need more of both of those in my life. So I'm trying to manifest that and seek that out where I can. So that's my offering.
That's awesome. Thank you, Amy.
I get back to the Camino every year because 10 years ago, when I first walked the Camino Francis, I made a vow that I would walk a Camino every year as long as I could still walk. I'm 83 now, and except for 2 times that COVID prevented me, and last year a small bout with cancer prevented me from getting there, I've walked double Caminos every time I've missed one. So this year I'm doing the Camino Kodo, and meeting my neighbor who I promised 10 years ago to walk with when he retired. Meeting him in Paris. We're going to take the train to St. John, and I'll be walking the Francis for the second time.
Wow, that's inspiring. Good for you.
Now, my only thought then as well was maybe, as a pilgrim of life, it's okay to get lost. Don't we get lost when we walk the Camino? And it's okay. We'll find our way again. That was from following on from what Amy was saying.
Yeah, I have a reputation for missing yellow arrows, and every time that I have missed one, it's taken me somewhere that I wouldn't have been otherwise, and it's always been a blessing in itself.
Yeah. That's how we have to look at it. Absolutely.
You guys have just queued me up so perfectly for our upcoming events. Thank you guys all for being here. This has been such a rich discussion, and I'm definitely going to look at the notes and journal about this afterwards. I'll watch the replay again too. Our upcoming events, if you guys want to join us again, you'll be getting the invitations. Our solitude is our theme for April on April 18th. And Adam, I don't know if it was intentional for you to bring this in, but our theme in May, on May 16th, is Getting Lost, Being Found. And I know we're going to have some amazing stories for that one. So I hope that you guys will join us for those events. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
What a lively conversation. We really appreciate all of you giving us your time today.
Have a great rest of the weekend and Sunday morning too in New Zealand.
Go be a good pilgrim for life.